I took a trip on a train and I thought about you. I passed a shadowy lane and I thought about you. 2 or 3 cars under the stars, there was a winding stream. The moon shining down some little town, and with each beam the same old dream. Every stop that we made, I thought about you. And when I pulled down the shade, I felt so blue. Peeped through the crack, looked at the track, at the road leading back to you. And what did I do? I thought about you. Shadowy lane, and I thought about you. 2 or 3 cars under the stars, there was a winding stream. Moon shining down on some little town, and with each beam the same old dream. With every stop we made, ooh, I thought about you. When I pulled down the shade, I felt so blue. Peeped through the crack, looked at the track, at the road leading back to you. And what did I do? What did I do? What did I do? I thought about you.
Sounds so good. Ladies and gentlemen, my guest, Gail Pettis. Hello, Gail.
It's great to be here. Thank you.
Yeah. Speak again. Sounded a little soft.
It's great to be here.
Yeah. Now I wonder if maybe I just have to turn up.
I have phones too that I can put on if that feeds it more directly into the computer. With the cord on the headphone.
I think we're okay now. If somebody says something, then we will do something. I'm just doing my one last thing. So Gail and I met through Gary Brumberg, who is a great person, singer, who moved from LA to Tennessee. And anyway, he was doing he wanted to do a cancer event. So myself, he, and Jackie Gibson got together and co-produced this event in LA, and Gail was one of the guests, and that's when we met.
Yeah, that was a great event and really my first introduction to the LA jazz community. Um, and to see how everyone supports each other and beyond how everybody pulled together for this event, which was just miraculous, just in and of itself. But
Yep.
it's been great to be, I consider myself, I don't know if you guys do or not, but I consider myself an honorary member of the LA jazz community. And that was a great way to be introduced to all of the good things going on there, in the community there.
That's nice. Yeah, we do have a really good community here. Um, yeah, it's really nice. I was just back east, and I mean, I have to say that really jazz people everywhere are, it's kind of like the same
Mhm,
tribe of people, right?
mhm,
And we're, obviously we're different. We have different groups and friends and stuff, but it seems to be the same um, ideas,
mhm,
ethics, values,
mhm.
a love for the music. And yeah, it's really, if you go deep into that, into looking at that, it's kind of heavy.
Mhm, mhm.
Joyce Glasgow says hi. I'm sure you know Joyce.
Yes, hi, Joy.
She's always here. And a great singer from down here, Pepper Mache, or known as Sister Jean. Do you know her?
Oh my gosh, I had talked to, we haven't talked in quite a while. We met um, through, well, later on we may talk about, one of the questions that is always kind of common in in interviews is who are your influences and who do you listen to and so forth. And one of those people is Bobby Caldwell. And so whenever he came to, I
Oh.
think this is how we met initially. And Jean, you can chime in if this is incorrect because it has been a million years ago. But I first discovered Bobby Caldwell a million years ago as well. And then when he started coming to Seattle, or when I was aware of him, I just made it a point to be at every show in Seattle. And then Pepper, Jean, was working with him at that time. And I believe we met at Jazz Alley at one of those shows. No, that's not right. I think we were at, um, um, mm, what is the name of the show that takes place at Midim?
Oh, Madame,
Yeah,
Medam. Yeah.
and that is where we first met, I believe, because she was holding court in the big open social food area, and she had, we joked because she had office hours, and that is actually where we met, and then we kept in touch as she traveled to Seattle with Bobby to perform over the next years. But our original
Oh,
meeting actually was there. So we
wow.
had to leave the country in order to meet, I guess. And so it's been a long time.
She said yes, you're correct.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't even remember how I met her. But I booked her at this jazz series that I was booking downtown a few
Mhm,
years back, and she had a regular gig there. I just adore her. She's so cool.
mhm.
I love Pepper.
Oh, so open with just a joy and a zest for life, so supportive.
Yeah.
I came, I think it was maybe around 2010 to perform, and we got a chance to hook up and go out to some diner somewhere in the middle of the night eating. And then we had a show at um, mm, show somebody's show house. I'm sorry. It'll come to me. And she came, and I still have pictures of the two of us posing, with the band and on the stairs and so forth. But she's great, and a great example of what we were talking about before in terms of, just jazz community, and you can meet someone across the world and then just bond because we have so much in common as a foundation already, even before we meet. So perfect example of that.
Yeah, aren't
Yeah.
we lucky? Aren't we lucky? We are so
Yeah, it's great.
yeah. Um, so the what I played to introduce you is with Pearl Django. I've had several friends with Pearl Django, but none of who I saw. Ron Peters, who was like my old boyfriend from college, who I actually came west with, he was in it, and wasn't John March in it?
Not to my knowledge, but he may have predated my association with the group.
Yeah, somebody was in it, and I thought I interviewed them. There was somebody else, not John March. There was another guitarist who was in this. Who was before that reiteration? Let's see. Was there one guy who switched? Um,
There was Ryan Hoffman, Neil Anderson, um, um,
I'm just looking through my live.
woman, Shelley Park,
Oh,
um, and probably, let's see.
let's see. Who was it? I can see him.
What does he look like?
Um, yeah, what does he look like? Wait a minute. Let's see if I can just look through, because it had to be
Well, was it Neil or Ryan? I'm just looking it up too now. I want to know.
Tim
Troy,
Lurch.
Troy Chapman, Greg Ruby,
Tim Lurch,
Tim.
right?
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so now interesting fact. He is uh, playing a lot these days with Jamie Finley since Jamie moved up to this
Yes,
area.
yes.
And he has been he's fantastic, and he joined the group after Neil Anderson moved back to California. So we have a little pathway between the Pacific Northwest and Southern California, apparently, with musicians changing and relocating. But Tim has been with joined the group since I've been singing
Okay,
with them, and he's fantastic.
he
So
is.
then you interviewed Tim?
I did. Yeah, actually, the same week I interviewed John March. So just happened that way. But yeah, and I don't know if Ron introduced me to them or Jamie. Well, Jamie had been talking since he moved back up north. He
Hmm.
had been telling me about Tim,
Hmm.
and I'm glad you and Jamie hooked up. I thought that was a great hookup.
Yeah, we did. We enjoyed working together. When we finally got a chance to do that, we did some things for a new place that opened up right here on Mercer Island, where I live. And then we did some things in and around the region for the Baha'i faith. Had some celebrations going on, and I had a great time, learning a little bit about his faith and spiritual beliefs, and then some of the songs that they sing, and again, kind of finding that common ground that we all share. Different flavors, different versions of it, but I've enjoyed meeting him, and now he plays together with Tim, and they're doing a number of duo shows over the region. And then Ron, I just met. It's funny how you can be in a community that seems like it is small if you think of, LA or New York in comparison. But many, many years I heard Ron's name and heard his playing, just online, but had never heard him live until he was with a friend of mine, Sherry Adams, a great, great vocalist
I know her name. Yep.
here in town. And they did a great show where it was just guitar and bass and vocals. And she normally sings with a bigger ensemble. So it was a really, really a treat to be able to have her voice kind of sitting out in front against different instrumentation, and then to be able to hear each person, so clearly. So they're performing again later in the month, I believe.
Sherry's actually here.
Pardon?
Sherry's listening.
Oh,
She's here on
Sherry.
Facebook.
But anyway, so yeah, small world, but it was great to be able to hear Ron.
And Rick LePennon, is he in the band?
Rick Lebanon is a bass player.
Oh, okay. Hi, Rick. I did not know.
Oh.
I'm not that familiar with the names of the group, but I guess I got a few records when Ron was in the band, and I thought it was beautiful. And then I heard you with them. I thought, wow, this is beautiful. Had they had a vocalist before?
Yeah, they've worked with quite a few vocalists.
Oh.
And I had heard them, before, and over probably the course of a few years, David Lang, who's the accordion player and a recording engineer who I had the pleasure of working with for both of my CDs, every time we would kind of cross paths, he'd say, we should do something together. Oh, we should do something together. And so eventually it came to pass. That sounds like Bible, and it came to pass. Anyway, so we had the chance to work together, and that collaboration has been one of the great joys of my music life here, because they're, well, number one, they're just amazing guys. And I'm not just saying this because Rick is on the line, hang on, and I'll give you the truth. No, anyway, so they're amazing, amazing people. Funny, smart, kind, and I just like being around them. But musically, they are just individually so excellent and so tight. And it's nice to be able to have such a firm foundation in that style, to kind of float over as a vocalist, and you just always feel, extremely secure with what they do. And then the other thing that is really interesting about working together is that they have not minded trying some crazy things that are kind of out of the context of the type of music that they normally do. So it's been great for me to learn some of the classic Django Reinhardt-esque style gypsy jazz, material. But at the same time, they're not averse to doing, Stevie Wonder tune or Aretha Franklin tune. In fact, Michael has often joked that, no gypsy jazz concert is complete without an Aretha Franklin tune. So it's really kind of a nice stretch, I think, from both sides, that we get to kind of cross over into each other's territory or wheelhouse or whatever you want to call it a little bit. And it's always kind of, it's always fun.
That's great. Yeah. By the way, Gary is here too. He said, "My dear talented partner in jazz crime, thank you for sharing my CD and my jazz cancer concerts. I'm always snapping my fingers in the still of the night."
Well, I saw Gary's archive, and I just had to laugh again when he told the story of how we met. It's still amazing to me that we and not to recap the same story, but, every once in a while, you'll see your name pop up on YouTube, and, maybe somebody taped something at a concert that you weren't aware of and they posted it. And, it was maybe that time where you forgot all the lyrics or whatever. So every now and then, out of curiosity, in fact, I haven't done it in a long time. I need to do that. But I'll just kind of see, what thing has maybe been, posted that maybe I wasn't even aware was taped or something. So I Googled my name on YouTube, and his uh, um, performance came up, where he said, yeah, I heard this vocalist from Seattle do this tune as a duet with bass, and I liked the arrangement and so forth. And he was so nice to, credit me and the bassist Clipper Anderson. And so then I thought, oh, that's really interesting. And
I know Clipper too. Sorry.
yeah. So
Yeah.
I sent the link to Clipper, and I was like, hey, we're famous, and then about 2 years passed and we didn't have any communication. And then just one day, randomly out of the blue, I thought, I wonder how that dude is, in LA, who sang Snap Your Fingers. And I looked him up again, and then we made contact this time, and we became fast friends. And Gary well, so you know how easy it is to adore him. And so yeah, that's kind of in a nutshell the story of how we met.
Yeah, he said he stole your song.
Well, I don't think anybody owns anything, and I think that Clipper and I both were honored that somebody would be,
That interested or
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
exactly, yeah,
Yeah. Clipper's a great bass player and a person.
yeah.
So so I saw that you had been an orthodontist, right, for a long time?
Hmm. Hmm.
And I had a friend who did that too. If one of my friends from junior high, high school period, she was a very big influence on my life, very jazz oriented. Her mother was a jazz singer and piano player. Her dad was a kind of a well-known jazz piano player. She and her sister were singers, and her stepfather was a dentist, and he kind of pushed her into being a dental assistant, which was great
Hmm.
because then she had the money to support herself, in New York instead of being, just like a jazz singer, So, I want to ask you about you. You were singing before, so you were singing as you were growing up, or what was your singing path?
Um, Kind of a little of this and a little of that. We on my neighborhood, we would kind of give little shows, and we had like a girls club,
Where are you from, Gail?
Gary, Indiana.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we had a girls club. In fact, it's so funny that this would come up because I just found a program, and we had a club of 7 girls. And so we, got together and decided we were going to have like a variety show. So we had a fashion show, a special presentation, and I just found this program. It's a mimeographed in the purple. Remember?
Yeah.
Um, and anyway, so here and there, just kind of around the neighborhood and with friends, we were always interested in singing and learning the newest dance that, all the new dances seem to come from the East Coast, when somebody visited their cousin in New York and then they brought back the football or whatever the, current dance was. But we just kind of always had an interest in the arts, as it were, to some degree. My church experience growing up was like Presbyterian hymns and classical music. Um, my sister went off to school in Boston, and that was kind of my first introduction to gospel music, because she came back singing, some contemporary gospel songs, Andre Crouch and so forth, and we just weren't necessarily exposed to that in our Presbyterian circles. And so that was just kind of a brand new, cool thing. And some of the contemporary harmonies, I just remember just being amazed, because it's very different from the structure of the kind of the chords and the
Yeah, very
their
different.
sounding chords in the hymn books, and from classical music as well. So that was an influence. We also I also joined the choir in high school, and I had a brief career on the French horn. I wanted to play. This is very shallow sounding. I don't know why I'm saying this. It'll be archived.
Because you're admitting the truth.
Well, jazz is truth, right? But there was a gal who was just very, very, gorgeous and petite. And, I just thought she was just the most beautiful creature I had ever laid eyes on. And she played the tuba. And so she was so small, but inside that big tuba, she just looked so, just tiny and bird-like and feminine. So I wanted to play the tuba for that reason. Nothing about the sound, nothing about the role in the music, but I just wanted to look cute and small. And Mr. Lamantia, our high school band director, because you had to play, you had to, apply and so forth. And he said, yeah, well, that's good, but we need French horns right now. So basically and he didn't say it this mean or anything, but basically that's,
He just said basically it's either French horn. Well, it is French horn, yeah.
Or don't, yeah, you can't pick. So I learned the horn and learned some scales enough to slide in. And then we played a lot of, 2 and 4, kind of accents, and counter melodies behind some of the things. And it was enjoyable. It was a great time. I loved the sound of the French horn. And it's almost like, and here I'm misquoting for the record. The piano player who's written several books on
Not somebody like Kenny Werner.
Kenny Werner, that's who it was. And he was talking in the first part of his book about how, and again, I don't remember it, but I just kind of have enough of an impression to know that this was kind of that same experience. He talked about how a lot of times schooling and teaching can kind of affect the perception of the joy that you get, and that sometimes he'll have his students maybe just play a note and focus on how it sounds in the experience rather than a methodology. And this is many, many years ago that I read it, so I'm sure that that's not exactly what he said. But I guess what I remember about the French horn was being in the band room sometimes early or late practicing, and just the tone, the way that it felt to vibrate, and then in the higher registers, it kind of got like a brassy sheen on it that was kind of a little, not brittle, but, so those I think that was where I really had a love for, just what music felt like to me, aside from, any concern about performance or is it good enough or am I hitting the right note, but just, before all of those thoughts that I'm sure that we all deal with, to some degree, had a chance to manifest in my mind. Before that, there was just the pure joy of the sound and the feeling and everything. So, I think that was, for me, a foundation without really being aware of it. And then I loved harmony singing, love harmony. We had some, neighborhood where we would just stand around and sing and harmonize with each other and so forth. And then in my house too, my mom had a great ear for harmony. My sister's a singer. My dad didn't sing professionally, but he had a gorgeous voice and loved to sing loudly a lot around the house. So yeah, that's kind of, a little bit here and there, but that's the start of the music.
Yeah, well, that makes sense because the French, especially about the French horn, because your voice has kind of that kind of a quality to it. It's warm, and which I think of as the French horn too. A wood, it's a woodwind, and which
Mhm.
is pretty much what we are. And yeah, I played flute when I was younger, and that sound, like when I went to school, everybody was writing for two horn charts. They would write for sax and trumpet. That was kind of the standard.
Mhm.
I wrote for flute and trombone. It was
Wow.
like yeah, I want something, like this kind of a quality of
Mhm, mhm.
feeling and sound, And so that makes sense that you would play French horn and fall in love with it and then, went on to sing and also harmony. I also grew up with two sisters who sang too.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
the harmony thing is it's not it's a physical thing too. It actually has a vibration,
Mhm,
right? That
mhm,
we're
mhm.
attracted to.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, of course, that's what we put out as well. We put out this vibration that affects the listener. So, oh, and Jeff Baran is here,
Oh, Jeff, great bass player here in Seattle. Hi, Jeff.
and he said, like the young Jackson Five. Right.
Yeah, yeah.
Smoking, right? We got really excited about that. It was so good. Yeah. I mean, just thinking about that, I can feel how happy my ears were. You know? So,
You mean with the Jackson 5?
yeah, just the
Yeah.
sound of that, just made you happy to
Mhm,
hear that, It was so
mhm,
good,
mhm.
brought a lot of pleasure in orally,
Yeah, yeah. We were so proud in Gary of the Jackson 5. They were from Gary, and
Oh,
then
really?
just
Oh,
when they started to be a little bit more well known, it was really kind of a thrilling thing for Gary.
wow. I
Yeah,
didn't know
yeah.
they were from Gary.
Yeah, yeah. Um, uh, Denise Williams uh, is from Gary, and Kelly. I don't have her last name on the tip of my tongue, but we have a little bit of a musical legacy in Gary. So yeah,
Well, Gary, Indiana. I mean, that's, of course,
gotta learn that tune.
Gary famous, man. Do you sing that song?
No, no, I that is my homework. There's that tune, and then back home in Indiana, I think
Uh-huh.
that, and a few more that people have suggested to me, or when I say I'm from Gary, they burst out into song, and I'm just like, yeah, yeah, I'll get right on with it. But anyway, so yeah.
I'm from Boston, so the only
Oh,
Boston, you're my home, dun 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 dun, dun. An old rock tune, man. But other than that, Boston, I can't think of any Boston songs.
yeah. No, I can't. I didn't know that. I just, for some reason, assumed that you've always been a West Coast person. How did you
No.
end up on the other side completely? And where did music figure into that?
Well, I was always in music. My dad was a sax player. My mom had been a singer. My twin sisters, who were 4 years older than me, they both sang really well, and one played piano. So we grew up singing together. And then, since my dad was a sax player, we would go on gigs with him. So we came up like that. Then I actually got into Berkeley, and I was playing flute at the time. And they didn't have vocals at the time. So I went in flute, and I was young. I was in my late teens, 18, 19, And and then frankly, I wanted to get away from my mother because she was extremely manipulative. She was always trying to change me because she thought that I was going to turn out like my dad. But I think she misread it. She saw maybe me, the artist, and then she thought I was going to be, like do his bad stuff. And so anyway, long story short, I left town with Ron Peters. Ron and I were dating at Berkeley. And we went to San Francisco first for several months, and then we decided to come down to LA because he's actually from Palmdale in LA. So we came down, and you know, and etc. The rest of the normal stuff when you're in your early 20s and you're a musician and you're going through stuff. So that's how I got to the West Coast.
Wow. Now, what was the music scene like at that time? Did you play out flute, or did you, at what point did you start your
I
vocal?
had kind of given up on the flute
Mhm.
because my singing, it's too bad because just as I was getting, like over the line, to
Mhm.
be actually a musician on flute, I
Mhm.
decided that it was going to take too much work and I was just going to sing.
Mhm.
And so, um, um, so that during that time, that was the mid 70s. And at that time, there was a lot of, there was the older musicians were doing a lot of studio work. This was the time of the, what was it called? Oh, I was just talking about it. The group of people who played on everything, like did three sessions a day, and I forget what they're called. I just talked to somebody who was part of that group. It's, just the musicians who were
Mhm.
working during this time. Lots of studio stuff, and the live gigs were pretty much straight ahead. And then as the years inched on, then there started to be kind of more like fusion coming in
Mhm.
in jazz, with the younger people. Seawind came out, and Lee Ritenour and that kind of thing started happening. And then there was this extremely fruitful period where we were doing a lot of originals, the people who lived here. There were rooms that you could actually do your originals, and that was what was happening.
Uh-huh.
And that was really fun. There was the $2 bills and the come back in and the blah blah cafe, and it was, I mean, everybody was doing that.
Wow.
And so there were some really good times. And like if you went to a straight ahead jazz club like Alphonse's and you stayed past 2 o'clock,
Mhm.
Sarah Vaughan was there drinking and carrying on and having fun.
Mhm.
The Wrecking Crew, yes, Jeff, thank you. The Wrecking Crew. That was the group of musicians who were doing it at that time. But so those were some really good days. It was much safer at that time. There
Mhm.
was, I don't think we even had cell phones, right? We had pagers. And, the traffic was reasonable, and you could actually stay in, you could wangle and stay in clubs after
Mhm.
hours.
Mhm.
So it was a good time in LA during that period. Really good time.
So you've been a writer since the beginning, then, it sounds like.
Well, really and truly, I think I started writing when I got married to my first husband, and so that was 1979. So I pretty much started writing then, and I had this steady gig for a few years every Tuesday, and so I got a chance to try out the songs and
Mhm.
listen and fix them up and write charts and see what worked and what didn't. Are
That
you
is,
are you a composer too?
I should say yes, because in my heart I am. I've written and kind of almost completed one song, but I have so many hooks and ideas and bass lines and things that need to be, you know, kind of explored. And in fact, I guess it's been about a month ago, Mark Winkler had a YouTube thing where he was talking about, you know, songwriting and so forth. And I would love to, you know, formally take some classes because, you know, as I've listened to people talk about songwriting, you know, I guess my kind of naive layperson outsider concept is that, you know, you just sit and you say or something, and then all the songs come to you. And so the more I hear, every time I hear someone talk about songwriting, you know, there are mechanics and things that you can do to, you know, so that's all, and methodologies. In fact, somebody came to my church, this has been a while ago, and they taught some songwriting classes, and one of the guys just had us write down letters, you know, that were letters of notes. And then he said, just write down 4 random letters of the alphabet from, you know, A through whatever you know. And so we just did 4 random letters, and then each person had their paper, and he played those notes out on the piano. And then we each wrote a melody from those notes. And I guess that was the first time that it kind of sunk in that, okay, you know, there are things that you can do, you know, and lots of tools that people use, you know, because some of those 4-note songs, the melodies and the words were awesome. You know, they were songs that I would pay to hear. And it just came from some, you know, seemingly, you know, random exercise that had me thinking, well, how could something come out of that? So I would love to explore that more, because I've got, you know, some things that I would love to, you know, develop. Sometimes just the turn of a phrase or the way that I feel about something, or some emotion that comes up in or concept that comes up in a conversation, you know, I'm thinking, boy, that should be developed. So yeah, I am a songwriter. I am a songwriter, but I can't prove it to you right at the moment.
Well, sorry. um, I have a few things to say about that. First of all, Mark is a really good teacher. I've attended various classes of his. One time we even swapped. You know, I gave him scat lessons, and he gave me writing lessons. And actually, one of my favorite songs came out of his writing lesson, and there was a little trick, I guess you could call it, just, you know, an idea of how to, like, what to go for. It was something about it. It was a rhyming thing. Mm-hmm. And the thing is that where I really believe one does not need songwriting lessons to be a good songwriter. However, on the other hand, I think that the more experience and information you get gives you more, you know, more stimulation and maybe a little light on in the dark room, you know, and and you can, like the example you gave, you know, you might not have thought of doing that. You know, you might have thought, usually a lot of people will just sit there and go, I can't write. They just sit there and they say, I can't write, instead of actually putting their hands on the piano and fooling around. And then all of a sudden you hear something. Or like for me, I have this little thing that I do called prayer improv. Every now and then wherever I'm outside, I'm inside, and I record something. I just start a lick, right? You know, just improvising, and then I develop it, and in about 2 minutes it's over, you know, in a very natural way. But I've created this lick. So that's writing. I could just take that actually and develop it. And I found two things while you're writing. One thing is the more serious you take it while you're doing it, the less it comes out.
Mhm.
So really, it's kind of like singing, right? We really, the best way to sing is to enjoy it,
Mhm. Mhm.
right? Not to worry about it, because when you're worrying about it, it gets stifled.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's the
Yeah.
same kind of thing. It's like you have to, that's why it's good to do a little bit every day to remind your whole perspective that that's what it's about. It's about enjoying it, and oh, I like this little dun do dee ba. Let me repeat that. Let's see what I hear.
Mhm.
The other thing is if you're not theoretically, progressed, then you might feel intimidated as well because you don't know what would be a hip progression,
That's
But how I started writing was I would write the melody and the lyrics, whenever, whichever first, and I would hear the chords in my head, but I didn't know how to translate that onto paper really.
Mhm.
So I would write either the bass note that I heard, because I usually heard kind of a progression that way, or maybe two notes in the chord I heard.
Mhm.
Then I would look it over, and then I would, with my somewhat limited knowledge of theory, I would call it a chord.
Mhm.
Then I would get together with a real player,
Mhm.
and and when as they were playing through, I would hear what I wanted, and I'd say, "What is that?" And then I'd write it down.
Mhm.
So it was really a progress,
Yeah.
you know.
Mhm.
So the thing is, you just uh, it's like give yourself time while you're doing it, and
Mhm.
let yourself like it. Let
Mhm.
yourself kind of be led by the focus and the creative flow. Let yourself be led by that. And don't be
Mhm.
too picky,
Mhm.
just let it come out. Oh,
Mhm.
another thing too.
Right.
For a while, actually, I stopped writing because I was trying to be jazzy. And what was coming out at that time was very folky, and which is definitely part of my history, but I wanted it to be jazzy.
Yeah.
And so I stopped writing because I was trying to force this thing. Then
Mhm.
I finally realized, after probably like a year, I finally realized that I had stopped myself from being creative and just, what do I care? Just write a folk tune. Well, I could
Mhm.
throw it away, or I could sing it, or somebody else could sing it, whatever. Doesn't
Mhm.
matter. Just don't stop that flow. The
Yeah.
muse has
Yeah.
to come through.
Yeah, that's really good. And in fact, I one of the ideas that I have, or two that don't fit into like the vocal slash jazzy realm. One is kind of a bebop head, and then the other is kind of a like a singer songwriter folky kind of a thing that I couldn't imagine fitting into any of the instrumentation that I'm most familiar with. But it's a good to have that reminder that those are worth developing as much as anything else.
Yeah, or not. I mean, you can you can write it and you could throw it away if you want. I
Yeah.
mean, or you could just put it aside. That's a song that's done, and maybe you don't want to sing it now, or maybe you might sing it later, or maybe a singer-songwriter person might say, "Do you have any songs that I could sing?" And you'd say, "I have this one."
Mhm, mhm,
But don't, the important thing is to not stop yourself and not get too terribly serious about it.
mhm,
And I mean, I'm sure I don't know. I'd have to ask serious composers how they view that, if that's how
mhm,
they think. Do they not get serious about it? Are they open to a flow? But I think so, because I remember, what did I read? I think it was Elizabeth Gilbert. Are you familiar with her writing?
Is that Eat, Pray?
Yeah.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
And I don't know if you've read a following book that she wrote called uh, Big Magic. I think it's called Big Magic. I haven't read it for a while. Big Magic. Anyway, it's something like that. And the book, well, first of all, she's really easy to read, and also she in this book it kind of gives you permission to be creative. You probably would like it. Um, and the thing she talks about the muse, and the muse exists, and if you're open, the muse is going to come and find you. If you're not open, the muse is going to pass you by. So when you're serious or you are stopped somehow, blocked up, then the muse is passing you by. So you have to just let everything go and open up, and whatever comes through, just accept and whatever. It's just like singing jazz, you know. Something comes in, you know, we
Yeah.
we use it. We do something with it. We don't go, I don't know what to do, you know.
Let me just dissect this and see if I can define the working parts of, whatever. You just kind of take it in on a different level.
Yeah.
It, and also, I guess if you run after the muse, maybe it runs away or won't be so available too.
Yeah, yeah. That's probably true. Nothing like being in the moment, present,
Hmm.
and aware of everything.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. This is really interesting because I guess I've never thought of songwriting
Yeah.
in the same way as the muse that comes to you when you're singing, because I will tell you that if I try hard, it doesn't really, just in
Work.
terms of singing, if my mind is too, like, I don't know, intellectually scientific and I gotta accomplish this. But then if I'm washing dishes or chopping onions or something that that just is a little bit distracting, but I still have most of my, kind of, I mean, it's just those times I'll just like be singing something and go to places that I can't go other times. In fact, I've always like kind of joked about like maybe I should just bring a pan of dishwater to a gig, and set it up, you know what I mean? So that I can reproduce that, reproduce
Yeah.
that distraction that takes your thinking mind away enough
Yeah.
for the other stuff to happen, you know.
Yeah, it's so true. And
Yeah.
anytime if you listen to Eckhart Tolle or, any of those people, they say the same thing
Right.
over and over again. Get your mind out of the way, meditate so that you're in the practice of doing that. It's like
Mhm.
being there and observing, but not necessarily involved, you know.
Yeah.
And yeah, and well, you probably don't know this, but I'll just mention. So I wrote this little book, and it took me 15 years of just gathering information. I didn't think I was writing a book, but during the pandemic, I decided I would gather all this and put it into a book.
Mhm.
And so it's a philosophy book about exactly what we're talking about as far as a lesson in one area
Mhm.
applies to a lesson in another area.
Wow. Wow.
I've always loved that idea, especially teaching. I always see that,
Mhm.
wow, this technique information actually applies to jazz singing, actually applies to life and everything you do. So, so what we're talking about is absolutely, as a matter of fact, let's see, I talked to this guy, Kenny Lee Lewis, Monday, who's a bass player and a guitar player with Steve Miller Band and everything. But he loves to fish. He's fished for years.
Mhm.
And he said regarding that fishing is like, what did he say? Like playing or, yeah, I guess he said it's like playing or even selling because he used to sell too for a period of time. He worked as the manager of Guitar Center, but he described the fishing, and all the little subtleties. They
Mhm.
exactly apply
Wow.
the other areas too. So,
Wow.
um, yeah, it's really a wonderful, I mean, you have to really kind of stop and look at your life and see where these lessons do. They apply everywhere, but we don't always think about it. But the muse thing is really interesting. As a matter of fact, I'll just tell you this little thing about what Elizabeth said. So she said at one point she had decided to write this book, and she had even gotten like a deposit from the publisher, and like after a year or two, she couldn't do it because there was something happening with her husband, and all this stuff.
Mhm.
So she dropped it. So shortly after that, she went to a convention and she met a writer who she had known about, and they had both kind of admired each other. And the writer was writing about that subject.
Oh,
And she really believed that the muse had tried her, right? And then she closed the door. And so that idea traveled to somebody else.
now this makes me sad though, because it wasn't her fault if she had extenuating circumstances and she couldn't, I don't know. I don't know. Who do we talk to about this? Can we get
Yeah,
the police?
well, that's kind of, yeah, I think that's kind of how it goes.
Yeah, yeah.
But
Well, wow.
I think I mean, again, just a lesson, it's, well, I always felt that you needed two things to be okay in life. You needed
Mhm.
to be capable of confronting anything and capable of accepting responsibility for everything. So if you do that, then, and in a situation like that, you just look at it and then you go, okay, well, that's what happened, and now I'm moving on.
Mhm, mhm,
So,
mhm, mhm. Wow. There's a lot to think about in this last few minutes, too. I'm reminded of when I had an idea for something, and it was back when we first had the mouse on the computer, and there was just one button to click. And I was in the middle of doing a lot of writing and editing, and I just thought, what if there was like a right click and a left click? And I told I used to work with this guy named Chuck, and he was like, yeah, that's a good idea. And I even had like a right click, left click, and a thumb click that you could just, kind of do. And years and years and years went by, and he was like, you should do it. You should totally put that out there. That makes sense rather than the one click. And there must be some way that this click could mean something, this click could mean something, the thumb click could mean something. And I had even named it. I called it I didn't have the whole name, but I had the blank edit master mouse. And it was going to be kind of, geared toward people who did a lot of, writing your thesis, editing, people, because it was just so, and I'll never forget the day he came into work, and he just put a catalog down on my desk, and there it was with the two clicks. So anyway, so
oh man.
all right, we should move on. I'm getting depressed now.
Well, how about let's listen to some music, and I'll show you what I can see, and then you can direct me. Oh, my cousins. Let's see. So if we go here to Gail Pettis, and whoops, what did I do? I went away from you. Ah, okay, fine. Let's see. Did I go the wrong way? No? Okay. Well, let's go get you again. Oh, there you are on this side. I don't know how that happened. So, I love what a little moonlight can do, but I'm willing to go wherever you want to go. Oh, you sang with the jazz orchestra?
Yeah, the Seattle Women's Jazz Orchestra um, did some things a few years ago, and it was really kind of a fun challenge to have the.
Sorry. Yeah.
It was kind of a fun challenge to manage within the confines of a predetermined arrangement. So it's different from playing with, a trio and you just kind of move together versus, there are certain chord changes that are going to be there because they're part of the arrangement, certain, stop and start solos and so forth because it's prearranged. So it was really fun to be able to sing with those challenges in place.
Now this is only 30 seconds, but let's hear it anyway.
I'm lost in a sea of misery. My baby, he turned his back on me. Heartache, won't you please set me free and have mercy? Have mercy.
That was short, man. Now this should be very nice too.
This is some friends in Russia.
Oh, beautiful pianist.
I'm as restless as a willow in a windstorm. I'm as jumpy as a puppet on a string. I'd say that I had spring fever. But I know it isn't spring. Starry-eyed and vaguely discontented, like a nightingale without a song to sing. How could I have spring fever when I know it isn't spring? I keep wishing I was someplace else, just walking down a brand new street, hearing words that I have never heard. Oh, from a man I had yet to meet. I'm as busy as a spider spinning daydreams. I'm as giddy as a baby on a swing. But I haven't seen a crocus or a rose or a robbery. But I feel so gay in a melancholy way. It might as well be spring. It might as well.
That's very beautiful. And see, you're already a songwriter because you just kind of rewrote that song.
It's kind of one of those examples of how we were talking about earlier, being just kind of inspired by the moment, because I think every time any of us sings a song, it's never been that way before, and it probably won't be that way again.
Yeah.
I remember Benny Green, believe it was Benny Green. I'm 96.5% sure it was Benny Green. Told a story of when he was studying with someone, or he was in a band with somebody, and he used a lick, like twice, and they really got on him, and they were just like, don't when something comes up in the moment and it works, and my rewording, they're saying what you want to duplicate is the being in the momentness of it that led to that lick, but not duplicating the lick itself. So if it works, don't just keep doing it because it worked, because the reason it worked was in this context of being in the moment, So yeah, I loved that experience, and I guess I have favorite moments that I remember because of how they felt or how they sounded, and singing that song with them, that time is kind of one of those moments. Yeah.
Yeah. When were you in Russia?
I think it's been three different times over a period of maybe about 3-ish years, and it's been, well, figuring out anything that happened before the pandemic. You always have to kind of figure out how long ago you thought it was, and then add 2 years. But it was probably 2017-ish, around there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a little bit.
Wonder if it says it here. It might say it on here. Let's see. Yeah, September 20th, 2017.
Mhm.
So you are correct. Yeah, there are various comments. Pepper liked that, and Gary loved with that. And Joyce is talking about our muse conversation. There was a separate muse coming out of the same cosmic realm of community creativity. Beautifully put, Joyce.
Mm.
So, are you a person who practices singing?
I sing a lot. I probably could be a little bit more focused in my practice. I sing a lot, and sometimes if there's something that I need to work out, but my practice routine is kind of wanting.
She's so honest, isn't she? She's really beautiful. Thank you for, being so honest. I have a friend from Japan who joins us occasionally here. Have you been to Japan as well?
Yeah, a
Yeah.
couple of times.
Do you have a favorite section? I've been many places there.
Oh, I've always wanted to visit other places as well, but the two times I've only been in Kobe.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It's like my hometown there.
How so?
Well, I first went to Tokyo and Osaka for 3 months. Those were in the days when they were sending singers to do the Playboy clubs. This was a long, long time ago.
Mhm,
Then the next time I went, I had a duo gig in Fukuyama, Fukuoka, somewhere like in the southern area.
mhm,
And a man who owned a school in Kobe and he was a manager. He happened to be on vacation at the club I was singing at. So he
Oh,
started bringing me over like 3 times a year and hooked me up with an American pianist who was working for him named Philip Strange. And so we always, for years, I would go to Kobe first, do some work for him there, at the school and live, and then move out from there. We traveled all over the place.
oh, that's fantastic.
So what and why did you go to Kobe?
There, Kobe is a sister city to Seattle.
Yes.
There's a cultural exchange program, based in the sister city relationship that had auditions for a singer each year in Japan to visit Seattle and give a concert. And then there began to be auditions each year in the city of Seattle to send someone over there. So from the Seattle side, there's usually an adult singer and a younger singer, high school, I believe. I don't know what the technical cutoff restrictions are. And so the second year that concert was held, I got an opportunity to go over along with a singer I haven't been in touch with, Courtney Fortune. And so we went over to represent Seattle, and again had that experience we were talking about before, where it just cuts across all differences, and that just kind of left an imprint, on me as well. I something else that just comes to mind, that now that I'm talking about Japan, it seems to be pretty significant in terms of introducing me to what it can be like to meet up with other very different people yet have something in common, was in my, I believe it was sophomore year of high school. My church had an exchange program with a church in the Netherlands. And so a group from Gary, Indiana went over to the Netherlands, and we spent, I think we were over there about a month.
Wow.
And it was just amazing to me, to just meet these people who were so different, in many ways. But everything just clicked, and we, loved them. And then the following year they came to Gary. So it's been really interesting to be in situations where you're put together with people, and then you find that common ground, whether it's music. Had that experience in the dance community. I used to dance a lot of West Coast swing. And I remember one of the first times that I ever went to like a public dance, the tradition there was that if it was your birthday, you stand in the middle of the floor and they put on, your favorite song or whatever. And then a long line of people will stand in line to dance with you for a few seconds. And then they turn you
Oh boy.
the next one. And there was a woman, I want to say her name was Helen. And Helen was well into her 80s, early 90s. And, she was throwing down, and all the older guys, all the teenagers, and it was a beautiful thing to see, because they just treated her with so much respect, because she was, and she wasn't, it wasn't just like, patronizing kind of a thing, like, yeah, you're 80 and we honor whatever. I mean, she was really dancing. She was,
Yeah.
and so to see all of these people, male leads, female leads, dance with her as a follower. And then, little kids were standing on the sideline, and, older people were dancing with the little kids too at the same dance. So there's no ageism, no concern about gender, male leads, female leads and followers, no concern about anything. But if you love the music and just had a desire, because West Coast is a little bit hard to to learn. There's kind of a learning curve before you get to that point of really like freedom and enjoyment and signaling through your connection what you're both going to do. So once you get to that point, though, it is absolutely so addictive. And so, there's just a small group of maniac people who, were into it to that degree, and nothing else mattered, and so it's kind of the same whether it's music, coming to a different city to play with a band you haven't played with, before, anything. I love the concept of we're all the sameness over, this issue that we're all connected through. So just
Yeah.
came to mind.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
really nice. Yeah. Yeah, that's great.
yeah.
You so it sounds like you danced for a long time.
Yeah, I did. I wouldn't, I don't, again, the years, I don't know. I had to stop because I had, I'm not even sure to this date what happened, but I danced for probably 3 or 4 years. And then in 2001, I went away for 2 weeks. And when I came back, I wasn't able to dance anymore. So I don't know if I just kind of didn't warm up or whatever, but I did test positive for some of the antibodies for Lyme disease. And it happens that there were some Lyme ticks in the area where we were, kind of reported and so forth. So I got that treatment, but I haven't been able to really dance. And since then, and it's funny because we used to literally use the phrase, is there life after dance? Because that was our entire lives. And people, would sit around and discuss, would you ever date somebody outside of the dance community? I mean, because that was our entire lives. It's amazing to be on this side of it and then look back and see. But, we would be at dances, lessons, conventions, competitions all the time. And I can remember being at dances where, maybe if I hadn't danced in 3 days, I would just feel like rusty and I couldn't get to that Zen kind of point where you flow 3 days,
Yeah.
And I have a friend who moved to Sacramento and I could no longer dance, but for her, that was still her life. And so she said, "Oh, the dance community is so great here and I want you to meet my friends. So, come to this dance with me." And, I just newly was away from dance, hadn't really started singing. And I was so heartbroken. I went in the bathroom and
Oh.
I just cried like a baby because I couldn't
Oh.
imagine my life without dance. And now here's something that is, it's hard to say because now I have this perspective, but, you know, equally, probably more enjoyable than the dance that I thought I couldn't do, without. But it has some of the same elements of, flow and muse and connection with your partners or players and improvisation and listening and being in the moment. So I think if I didn't have jazz, I would still be heartbroken about the loss of all of the things, that are common to both that went away when the dance went away.
Yeah,
But
for sure.
yeah, it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, that
Uh,
is. That's wild.
May I ask you a question while it's on my mind? I'm just still kind of fascinated with the concept of your book and the lessons that apply to everything. So is that available through like Amazon or?
Yes, it's
Okay.
available through Amazon, and
Okay.
the publisher is BookLocker. You can actually go to booklocker.com.
Mm-hmm.
It's also listed on my website too, so you can
Okay.
follow the links that way too. Yeah, it's a very small book, and you can stick it in your pocket. And I think it's kind of stimulating to kind of go, oh yeah, this I have a few things like that in my life.
Mhm, mhm. Is there a way that it is more beneficial to you to buy it, or a preferred way to get it?
Probably Book Locker because Book Locker, gives me more money than Amazon.
Okay. Yeah, that's yeah. Kind of,
Thank you.
I have a feeling it'll be like a read and a reread. When Gary was on, he talked about, I don't know how you pronounce her name, Tessa Suter.
Suitor.
How do you pronounce it actually?
Suitor.
So Tessa Suter
Yeah.
wrote a great little book called "Anything You Can Do, I Can Do Better," and she was just so honest and put everything on the table about, the dream to sing and what it cost her, and what she had to pick up and put down, over the years, because she was a writer. And some of the things that I've learned from reading in that book and that resonate, number one, that's kind of, the first thing is just like, oh, somebody else is dealing with these same issues. And then some of the, just her path was just that was, it's an easy read in a way, because it's not a very long book, but deep and really helpful. And so this seems like it would be in that, same vein of something that would be relevant to, what a lot of us are going through.
Yeah, yeah. I didn't know that she had written a book, so that's news for me.
Oh, it's really good.
Yeah, I think I mostly have read books like Kenny Werner's two books.
Mhm.
Did you read the second book of his?
Mm-mm, mm-mm.
It's fantastic. He just came out with it last year called Being the Instrument. And it's definitely an expansion of Effortless Mastery.
Mhm.
And it's beautiful. It's really a great book. And I don't know if you're aware of this, blew me away when I found out about it. But Berkeley, about 7 years ago, literally made a department called Effortless Mastery and put him in charge of it.
Oh man.
You
Yeah.
imagine that? Like going to school in that department, getting whatever the degree they give, but and being trained to go out and deliver those ideas. I
Mhm.
just that blows me away. It's just
That
so cool.
that's really kind of interesting, because I mean that I was my understanding of what he felt like schools were, maybe could benefit from, you
Yeah,
know, or missing to some degree.
absolutely,
Oh yeah, I hadn't heard that.
Yeah. Let's see. Um, hello. Sorry, I was trying to. That's interesting. What's happening? Yeah. I was trying to answer somebody, and for some reason, I can't make a comment on my own page, which is interesting. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. You know, this sometimes I have very high tolerance level, but there are certain things that my head kind of gets hot, like technology,
Mm-hmm.
and just what's happened over the last 30 years or so, where with people doing a job poorly or not listening or not following, or little things breaking down. And, you have those days when
Mm-hmm.
thing after thing after thing breaks
Mm-hmm.
down.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's this part of my head starts frying or something, It's like, why can't I put a comment on my own Facebook page in this? It says community standards. Yeah. And
Yeah, and then when it starts snowballing, that's the worst.
oh man, just oh, yeah, Jeff. He said you need a Pettis button on your mouse.
That's why we cry on this show. Ah,
That's so true, man.
mm.
Have you ever done teaching?
I did. In fact, Jeff was part of the teaching experience that I had at Seattle Night School. There was a singing with jazz trios class, and Jeff was the bassist in the very first time I taught that class. And I've done a little bit of teaching for Lisa Grace up in Anacortes for some of her students, and a workshop when she lived in the Seattle area for, again, some of her students. Yeah, so a little bit of teaching here and there. Had an opportunity to do some private lesson teaching on a visit to Sacramento when someone had requested it and so forth. I'm a little bit limited by not being able to visit to Sacramento when someone had.
Sorry, go ahead. You probably,
Yeah, a little bit
probably heard the
limited
whole thing.
to not being able to play an instrument. But, I suppose there's nothing that would prevent me from using, recordings and, that type of thing. So, yeah, I haven't been consistently teaching, but I do enjoy it. I'm talking to Jazz Night School about the possibility of doing kind of a phrasing and interpretation, workshop, and then yeah, the pandemic and life got really kind of busy and complicated for me for a few different reasons during the pandemic, and that's just starting to level out a little bit. So yeah, I would love to do some more teaching.
Cool. And one thing I wanted to ask you, I don't want to forget to ask you this. Who are your influences when you let's see, I'm trying to think. I mean, I remember what you said about your history, but was there a time period when you did a lot of listening to jazz singers, past jazz singers, or and
Um,
people influence you? Were you in love with certain singers?
um, my dad was a huge fan of jazz, and in the 60s, when everybody was redoing their basements, and instead of, concrete block, you had, like fake wood paneling, and, and when people, started spending more time in their basements, we did that. And he had a huge jazz collection, and my sister and I kind of joke sometimes about, you know, when people say who were your influences, we really don't know all of them, because we just kind of heard it and it was part of our, household. I can remember Nancy Wilson. I can remember Dakota Staten, Late Late Show, that album cover, Ray Charles, um, um, some comedians, the Bickersons, which had nothing to do with jazz, but I have a lot of his discs, now.
Yeah.
I have a lot of discs belonging to his mother and aunt, because my grandmother and my aunt played piano and organ, and my aunt's husband by marriage, was an opera singer. So we had a little bit of, all kinds of influences is there, growing up. So, I guess Nancy Wilson stands out as one that I remember and can put a name to. But I'm sure that there were Mahalia Jackson CDs. So I would love to. I have boxes of things that are cluttering up my tiny apartment, but I just can't bring myself to get rid of until I, maybe at least play them and digitize them and put them on, like an MP3 kind of a thing. So I think those were the early influences, just kind of a mix of things. And then I would also say that there was a lot of R&B, Jackson 5, stylistics, Delphonics, some of those, some of those groups during the time period where we were growing up. And then, once we got those basements fixed up, we were all in each other's basements having dance parties and so forth. And so a lot of those things were just kind of the fabric of our lives, but not necessarily something that we sat down to listen to, intentionally. So I would say kind of all of those things.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. There's,
Cool.
mhm.
Were you going to say something?
No, not really. I mean, I was just gonna add that, by choice. So those are kind of some of the things that came in. But by choice, I would say now it's just as scattered, but I think the common thread is somebody who makes me feel something.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I know. I was going to say that because, the various people, right,
Mhm.
that you mentioned of varying styles, they all had a certain quality,
Mhm. Mhm.
and that quality is what makes the artist and makes the audience love the artist. Again, this guy, Kenny Lee Lewis, had such really interesting perspectives. Um, this was something that was kind of unique. Since he had been more of a rock performer
Mhm.
for thousands of people in audiences, right, and also a writer, he co-wrote that Abracadabra Steve Miller record. He co-wrote all the material on it, and so he was talking about the catalog, like people in that realm, they get attached to the catalog, you know, like where
Kind
you were when you heard abracadabra, you were with your boyfriend and you were breaking up, or, there are these attached significant moments to these particular songs or a lick or something like that.
Mhm.
And so when they come out, like when you and I come out in a jazz form, first we're probably want to create the magic with the group and share that with the audience, right?
Mhm.
Even though we'll say hello to the audience, it's not the audience first. It's this we're creating this beautiful stuff, right?
Mhm.
Because it's in the moment and it moves along. But for him, he said it's usually the other way around. You come out, there are these screaming fans, thousands of fans, and they're waiting to hear abracadabra.
Mhm.
And as soon as you start playing it, they're propelled into that moment that made that song important. So they don't care who's playing it really. It's like, oh yeah, yeah, Kenny Lee Lewis, yeah, whatever. They don't care so much. Oh, listen to the tone of his guitar. Only that it relates to that,
Oh,
as he
that's
put it, the
really
catalog.
interesting.
Isn't that interesting?
So you can write a song, go out and perform it, but the song has a life of its own, regardless of the fact that the person who conceived it is playing it on stage.
Yeah,
There's an attachment to the song aside from, yeah, yeah.
yeah. It's pretty
Wow.
interesting, isn't it?
Wow.
It's really a different kind of point of view.
That seems like it would be a little bit, I mean, on one hand, encouraging because what you made resonates with people, but to have it detached from that in a way that jazz kind of keeps that connection between
Yes.
the live performance and what's happening in the moment.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we did speak about that. Yeah. He said basically he said the same thing. It's the good and the bad.
Mhm, mhm,
And he had some experience with jazz as well, so he knew the difference personally. And yeah, but it is it's interesting because I mean we've grown to love the moment, right? The
Mhm.
creating of the magic in the moment with the musicians, and that's what we focus on and get off on, right?
Mhm.
The beautiful creativity,
Mhm.
and we share that.
Mhm.
And that's what the audience likes,
Mhm.
our audience.
Mhm. Mhm.
So yeah, it's
Yeah.
really it's
Yeah.
interesting.
Well, this kind of reminds me of one of my favorite tunes is a song that was done back in, I don't know, the 70s, I would guess. And it was a song that people resonated with. It was kind of a bouncy song, and the lyrics were really like heartbreaking, but people just kind of, would sing that, and I had heard it many times. And I not too long ago, maybe a few years ago, heard this tune and for the first time understood the lyrics or even paid attention to the lyrics. And it's kind of reminds me of what you're saying because there's kind of the pop thing that people associate with a moment in time, and it's the song. And then I was thinking about this song because if there's one song that I could play for students or anybody, friends, to like say this is my goal of what I think jazz should be able to do in terms of telling a story, and I listened to the original version of the song and then this version that brings out the lyrics by treating it in a different way. It's just it's detached. The version that is more meaningful for me is so detached from the time and the experience and the bouncy, tune from the 70s. And then it just kind of opens that up and then strips everything bare. And you really, really understand, what the song is about, So I think I can understand what Gary Lee Lewis is saying that whether it's in the context of him performing and people are still connected to a version of the song or connected to the connection of the song in time and what they were doing versus being in the moment because maybe something, I mean, it almost reminds me of, haven't you ever gone to a concert, I mean, when you were younger and maybe not in jazz, and then you wanted them to do it the same way it was on the record, and you left a
Yeah.
concert mad, I want my money back, they didn't even sound like the record. You know what I mean? And
Exactly, yeah.
so, in jazz, we kind of cherish that. We
I
don't.
went and saw um, oh my gosh, James Taylor. I went and saw James Taylor at the Hollywood Bowl. It was a great concert, and they had two screens, and they had produced the show
Mm-hmm,
in really in a flow of history and beautiful pictures and the music. And, the band actually was more of a jazz band,
mm-hmm,
but they were playing his music. And he played, I mean, really throughout the show, the whole audience was
mm-hmm,
singing with him.
mm-hmm,
But they were fresh versions. I
mm-hmm,
mean, they had some similar pieces,
mm-hmm.
of the originals, but it was fresh because I guess that's what he wanted,
Yeah,
right? And
doesn't
it
stay
was
static.
beautiful, yeah.
Mm-hmm,
The other thing you made me think of was I did this concert and I heard this kind of acoustic rock chick, and she was playing on a ukulele, and she started doing this song, and I was thinking, this song sounds familiar, but I could not place it until the hook came up.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Staying Alive by the Bee Gees.
Oh,
And I couldn't place it because she was doing it totally different.
mhm,
It was like this total connection to her and acoustic rock style with a ukulele.
mm,
It was a ballad.
mhm.
And wow, I was
Wow.
totally impressed because it had great lyrics.
Yeah, isn't it? You know, I don't know if we have time, but I would love it if we could play a little bit of the song that I was talking about that had that same effect on me. Um,
Yeah.
but it's Ian Shaw.
Okay. Oh, yeah, Ian Shaw. By the way, Josh Nelson said he misses you.
Josh! Oh my gosh, I miss you too.
So Ian Shaw doing.
Alone again.
Oh, okay. Now let's hopefully find a copy that won't get us taken off.
Oh,
Uh,
how do you know? It's the first one.
yeah, it matters who's putting it out. Like these, some of these look like they're just private putting out. So like Coco, maybe, and beautiful jazzy cover. Yeah, I think this might be okay.
And you'll remember the original, and then
And I already do know the original of that.
In a little while from now, if I'm not feeling any less sound, I promise myself to treat myself and go visit a nearby tower. And climbing to the top, I could throw myself off in an effort to make it clear to what it's like when you're shattered, left standing in the lurch of the church, where the people are saying, my God, that's so tough. She stood him up. No point in us remaining. We may as well go home, as I did on my own, alone again. Naturally. Think that all along the way I was cheerful, bright and gay, and I was looking forward to, well, wouldn't you, the role I was about to play. And as if to knock me down, reality came around without so much as a mere touch. It broke me into tiny pieces, leaving me doubt the power of the Lord God Almighty. And if he really does exist, why the hell did he desert me in my hour of need? I surely am indeed alone again, naturally. There are too many people in this world with broken hearts that can't be mended, left unattended. What can we do? Do do do. Think that all through the years, everything else that appears, I remember I cried when my daddy died, never wishing to hide these tears. He was 65 years old, and my mama, God rest her soul, she couldn't understand why the only man she'd ever loved had been taken, leaving her to cope with a heart so badly broken, without a single word from me. No words were ever spoken. And when she passed away, I cried and cried all day, alone again, alone again, alone again. naturally.
Yeah. Fantastic. Well, I think this is also apparent in why so many people in the last bunch of years, the last 10 years or so, have been taking, music from the 60s and 70s and redoing them. One of my last records, I did that, and actually Josh and Anthony Wilson were the arrangers. And it's because, again, relating back to the what did my friend call it? The catalog. Those songs made such an impression on us. Like one of the songs I did was um, the Marvin Gaye song. Oh gosh, my brain is like not. Um, hold on again. I have to remember what the songs I did on the record were.
I'm
Let's see.
laughing because I'm remembering that you and Gary were talking about remembering lyrics to your own songs.
Save the Children.
Hmm.
That song, well, that whole record was like a desert island record for me. I mean, that record was one of the records that changed my life, and musically and socially and emotionally and every way, and and the version that came out, Anthony did this really long, amazing version, and the musicians playing, Josh and Anthony and Edwin Livingston and Lorca Hart. I mean, it was beautiful. What they did was really beautiful. Then I invited Mon David to sing with me on it, and it was great.
Mm.
So, yeah, I think, again, our whole conversation today, tying in the catalog and tying in redoing songs, and making them a personal expression. I think it's a beautiful thing. I think it's great. I love it.
Yeah, me too, and and not to say that the original one leaves anything, leaves something to be desired, because the Gilbert Sullivan version, it could be an interesting contrast, kind of a sarcastic, alone again, natural, that
Yeah,
could be interpreted a certain way.
yeah,
But I love, pulling it out of that setting to interpret the same thing, from a different viewpoint. So I would say, when people say, what's your inspiration, or who do you listen to, it's things like that. And it doesn't have to be a remake of an old song, but I mean, the way that the
personal.
way that
Yeah.
was done,
He's very good. He's very himself. I noticed on that record in the listing on the side that he did "A Small Day Tomorrow," and that's a song. I was just talking about it with somebody this week, but that's a song that I always felt like I couldn't sing that song. I mean, I liked it. I liked the music, and I liked the lyrics, but I didn't like them together. I thought I could never understand what emotion it was coming from. Is it just this pure little, oh well, I've got a small day tomorrow, which I've heard various singers sing it, or is
Mhm.
it kind of a dark, like, not sarcastic, but like ironic kind of a thing? That's what I always thought it had to be. But do you sing that song?
No, but I know I've wondered the same thing about it, because there are at least a couple of different ways it could be taken. And I don't know that I've ever, like, heard it and felt like that question was answered in a particular version. So it's just kind of a weird thing of having it, like, how do you, I mean, I guess you're free to interpret it any way you want, but sometimes, the lyrics make it a little bit less ambiguous and you have kind of a clear way to go. And that one seems like it could be anything. And it seems if I were to attempt to sing that song, I would feel a tremendous amount of pressure to convey what it was that I meant, by those lyrics. I wondered about that the same way.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Are there any songs that jump out that you really love? Like a combination of lyrics and music.
Mm.
I noticed somebody said that you did May I Come In. That's a song that's not totally done a lot, and that's a really interesting song, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, and I would probably say that it is one of my favorite, probably the favorite song from both CDs. I love the lyrics and the honesty of it, and like just the kind of flat out begging. There's just something that it's just really raw there. And then I kind of had a catalog experience of my own with that song, because it was the first time that I realized that singing could be about something else than being in tune. Not that we don't want to be in tune, but you know what I mean, that it could go beyond that. And I had the Apollo came to hold auditions in Seattle.
Oh.
And I just kind of had a feeling that I should go down and do it. I don't know why, whatever. But anyway, I went down there, and the atmosphere there was very, very, very tense. There was a big room outside where you would go into the theater, and they literally had the nerve to have 3 judges, like Simon, Paula, and Randy, sitting at a table and inside, and it was very nerve-wracking. And people were and dancers were stretching and everything, and everybody was just a ball of nerves. So there was one guy in Seattle who was very, very good singer. I mean, just known to just have people falling out at the jam sessions and everything. And he came out and he was like, "Yeah, man, I was so nervous." And I've never seen him not be at home on stage, but that just was the atmosphere that they had set up. And then I just remember going in there, and there was this huge theater, and you had to hold up a card with your number on it. And I had just sung that song to make a demo to try to get work. And it was a lot slower, and I just couldn't get the tempo. And I sang it over and over again until I kind of felt like I had something that I was happy with at that tempo. But that was the day before, so it was still living in my head, from that experience. So when I got up to sing, I was just singing the song that was in my head, and not, like, oh, how are they responding? What's the look on their face? Do they like it? Whatever. And then I was never nervous at all. And so it was just, I didn't end up going to New York or anything, but it was a really valuable experience, because it just taught me, that I don't have to be a ball of nerves, because, my main thing is just to kind of get into the song and feel it and do it. And, I was not the most experienced person there, because I had just started singing. I mean, I hadn't even had a gig yet and hadn't sung in front of people.
Wow.
And it was really valuable, because I just thought, oh, this is what it's about. It's about connecting with the song and being in the moment and the muse or the feelings or whatever, but that it's not that you're doing it. Because I'm by nature a people pleaser. Somewhere in my childhood, I kind of developed a, make people like you, speak when spoken to, kind of a, we all kind of come up with our things, but that is very much a part of my temperament. And for some reason, the experience with that song established for me that music was not a place where I had to prove myself. And we all still struggle with comparisons. And, when I hear another singer or instrumentalist and I hear what they do, it is honestly, a struggle for me sometimes to look at it as they have their thing, I have my thing, because there's always a tendency for that comparison, particularly for me. But the reason that this song was so meaningful was that it kind of was like an out of bounds, for that kind of processing, and as a kind of something that I go back to and remember, where, I don't have to, my job is not to do it so that it compares with the other person or so that it makes somebody else happy. I mean, I want people to resonate, but I don't know if I'm describing that well, but
You
that was
are.
kind of
Yeah, you are. And as a matter of fact, it's interesting that we're talking about this because I decided to reread a book called The Four Agreements. Are you familiar with that?
it's in my car right now. It's in my car right now. I've never read it. And it was recommended by, I took a workshop from Lettucey. I went to San Francisco, and at that time she was still living in the Bay Area, and she gave an improvisation workshop. And then one of the things it was the Four Agreements, and there was one other book that she recommended that we read. And I came across it, and I just thought, I'm going to just put this in my car, because sometimes when you're like, if you're on the ferry or something, and but I haven't read it.
Well, read it
Okay.
because it talks about what you're talking about. That's very interesting that the subjects are tying in,
Yeah.
yeah, especially how we came up. He puts it really interestingly. He says we were domesticated
Mm,
like a dog. We
yeah.
were domesticated into getting approval, stuff like that, stuff like that. And,
Yeah.
and then he also, as he moves through the book, through the agreements, he talks about that you uh, I forget the actual agreement, but it's don't desire to be liked, don't take things personally.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's you are who you are. No
Mhm.
matter what somebody says to you, whether they say you're gorgeous or whether they say you're ugly, it's still the other person's universe that they're speaking from. Really has nothing to do with you and your universe.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, it's anyway. I won't go on and on about it, but
No, I
I think
get
it's
it. That sounds really, really good. So my homework,
perfect.
my homework from the show is I'd love to read that book, reread Tessa, and read The Act of Becoming. I mean, I just
The
think
act
that
of
book is
becoming, yeah.
also pertinent to what we've been talking about.
Big Magic is good too. With
Oh, that's Elizabeth Gilbert.
yeah, and one more book that I always thought was a Bible, and I'm very friendly with the author, is Stephen Nachmanovich's book. His first book, especially that he read, he wrote. He and Kenny Werner wrote their books at the same time, and then
Mhm.
they wrote a second book at the same time, 25 years later. But anyway, his first book was called Free Play, uh, and subtitled "The Art Improvisation in Life and the Arts." It's such a great book. It's the kind of book that you open anywhere and it's talking to you,
Mhm.
and that you mark. Every page
Mhm.
has
Mhm.
marks. It's a
Mhm.
it's a wonderful book. So that's another
I
homework book.
just wrote
At
that
some
down. And then have you read the Art of Tennis, or the Art of Tennis? And then there was another book that somebody wrote, The Art of Tennis slash music or something, based on the art
Yeah.
of tennis.
I
And
remember talking to somebody about that this year because I've read other The Art of books, but that particular book was mentioned. I don't think I ever got it. The Art of Tennis. Yeah.
there
And
was someone's coach, and they taught them a bunch of things in tennis. And then someone else kind of, I don't know if it was a collaboration or they rewrote the book or got permission, but they took the principles in the art of tennis and apply them specifically to music.
Which again leads back to my book, the Act of Becoming,
Mhm.
because
Same thing.
where it's you can see lessons everywhere, and it amazes me because you know I mean, if you really were a person dedicated to this particular state of mind, everything would be kind of holy. Everything, every part of your life, gardening, taking out the trash, I mean, just everything could, you could get lessons from. And oh, Cherry said the inner game of tennis.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. Thank you, Sherry. Inner game. I'm taking notes on a book that I suggested because I want to read that. Sherry read it. Oh,
Thanks, Cherry.
uh,
Well, believe it or not, it's been 2 hours.
Now this is crazy because when I woke up this morning, I was like, oh, I don't know what I should have prepared. I don't know what it's going to be like. 2 hours is a long time, and now I can't believe it's gone so quickly.
I know we could talk, well, I'm sure we could talk another 2 hours, but I know it's funny, isn't it? It's because it's the hang and it's in the moment, and as the time goes on, you get more connected and
Yeah. Well, and it's nice too because I mean, even though I feel like I've known you for a long time from knowing your name and from having some contact at the benefits and being in your house eating bagels and and having a lesson, sitting in on the lesson from Tierney Sutton, and just kind of contacts over the time, and then through Gary and other people who know you, you know, I feel like I know you, but realize you think you know me well. You know what I mean? So this was great, if for no other reason, but that, because I do
Yeah.
feel like we've gotten acquainted a little bit more.
Definitely, definitely.
Yeah,
I really
yeah,
enjoyed talking with you. It's great.
yeah, yeah.
And I always admired your singing, but it's really nice to get to know you too.
Oh, likewise, same. Yeah. Congratulations too on your new project.
Thanks.
Yeah. So,
Yeah. Um, yeah, so I'm just going to tell people briefly that the next 4 days I have archives up, and if you can always see my Facebook page because I announce them ahead of time, or you can go to my website and you can see the list. Also, if you're in LA, I know you're not, Gail, but if you're in LA, this Saturday I have my monthly jam. So I do a show and then I open it up to jamming, and it's a really cool place. You'll have to come here next time we'll go next time you come here. It's called the Conference Room, and it's down near Playa Vista. And so Saturday, 6:30 to 9:30. And for those of you who have really been wanting a show on the west side of town, I just got a gig that I would love you to show up for because it's great band, great music, amazing restaurant, beautiful looking food and tasting food. July 5th, next Tuesday, at La Puglia, which is on Wilshire in Santa Monica. That's also 6:30 to 9, and it's with a great group. This incredible guitar player, you'd love this guitar player, Mitchell Long. He's he plays everything. He's on the road with people like Melody Gardot and blah blah blah, and he has a love affair with Brazilian music. He's really a great guitar player and a great person. Him and John Leftwich, wonderful bass player, and Chris Blondal, the drummer. And in recent months, we've been working on a no net project that John and I have been working on for a few years, and John's arrangements, and a mixed bag of music. And so a few months ago, we recorded and we did a few gigs, and so this band is part of the rhythm section, and so we'll be doing some of that music, and which is cool because I haven't really done those arrangements with the rhythm section, so I'm looking forward to that. So that's Tuesday, July 5th. So if you're in LA, come on down. Oh, and Pepper said, Gail, I want to tell you, I came home from a gig last Saturday and you were on Music Choice under the singers singers and swingers category. I didn't get to name the song. Your picture was beautiful. Just wanted you to know.
Oh, Pepper, we have to catch up. This is a multi-purpose show. I mean, I love the live interaction and being back in touch with people again through you. And as per usual, you're connecting everybody. So thank you for that. Yeah.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thanks for being on, Gail, and
My pleasure. My pleasure.
time.
If I can just throw in for people in the Seattle area
Yeah.
that if you are available to come to Kaluna in the University District on the Friday, the 22nd of this month or July, I'd love to see you there. It's for people who know Seattle. It's the former manager of Tula who started his own restaurant and turned it into a very beautiful and cozy jazz club. So we'll be there.
Fantastic. What's the name of it again?
Kaluna, Calluna.
Kaluma.
Kaluna. I
Oh,
think
with
it
a
means Heather.
Cullana.
Calla. I'm sorry, Calluna.
Kaluna. I wonder what that name means.
Heather.
Oh,
Heather. Her name's
oh,
Heather. Actually, the other owner's name is Heather.
oh.
His partner. So, and then we were talking about Clipper earlier, and Clipper's going to be there on that gig with me,
Wow.
with pianist Tony Foster. Some of the Seattle people will know both those names.
Oh,
So,
well, have a great time. Oh, that
yeah.
sounds so good.
Oh, well, come up to Seattle. Let's visit and hang and gig or something.
I will. I did go to Seattle a few years ago, and
Mhm.
Greta Matassa, she got a gig for me, and I taught her students, gave a workshop with Ron Peters, actually.
Oh,
And
wow.
so Clipper, of course, was there because
Yeah,
they're a
yeah.
couple. And I think Seattle's so beautiful.
It's so nice. And we're not that far apart. I had a couple of times where I came and played with Josh, and he was fantastic. And, it would be great to, come down to work again. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, we're closer. And now that things are opening up, it'll be great to kind of, maybe be able to cook up something together. Yeah. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I can't believe this is just a time warp. I'm looking for Rod Serling or something. And, because it's unbelievable how quickly it's passed. So thank you so much. This was
You're
a
welcome.
yeah.
Thank you, Gail.
All right.
Bye. Have a great
Bye.
day.